Winning Blueprint presents.
In the lab room, the market.
Welcome to the market. You're in the lab room. I'm your host, Lou. Thank you for joining me. Welcome to the market, the NFL's one-stop shop for all positions related to the field. And we're here to talk about the NFC South and what a division this is. Probably a season ago this time, we were talking about this possibly being one of the best divisions in all of football. The New Orleans Saints, the Atlanta Falcons, the Panthers were coming off of a very impressive campaign, even though they only went 6-10. The Buccaneers had a new head coach in Greg Schiano, and so you didn't know what they were going to be bringing to the table. And so this division looked extremely scary. But then you see the penalties levied down on the New Orleans Saints. They don't have their head coach. The whole Bounty Gate scandal unfolds. They're not the same team. The Falcons take over that division. The Panthers fall to the backdrop of the NFC South. And the Tampa Bay Buccaneers were inconsistent in the 2012 season, and so they were just an average division. But now, Sean Payton's back. The Saints look like they're going to be back. The Buccaneers look like a much improved football team. The Panthers are quietly making some moves to better their franchise. The Falcons are one or two pieces away from possibly making it to the Super Bowl. All of a sudden, this is a really good division again. So we're going to see what the NFC South has done thus far in the market to this point. Let's talk about it. First, I want to show you my big board, and on it is a comprehensive spreadsheet that I put together with every team in the National Football League on it. And among the topics on this spreadsheet are released players, players signed in free agency, re-signees, these are the players that you re-sign to your roster, and last but not least, players lost in free agency. And so let's talk about the NFC South, and we'll start with the first team up, the Atlanta Falcons.
Atlanta Falcons.
Now, the Falcons are a team that they were one or two plays away from making it to the Super Bowl a season ago. And they did everything right in the 2012 season. They got home field advantage throughout the playoffs. They won a lot of games. They won a playoff game for the first time in who knows how long. The first win in the postseason for Matt Ryan and head coach Mike Smith. And so that was a huge milestone for the Atlanta Falcons. But now you're running out of time. Guys like Tony Gonzalez, they don't have a lot of time left. And so you got to get it done. And I think you need Tony Gonzalez to win the Super Bowl. Unless you can replace Tony Gonzalez with another really good tight end, you need Tony Gonzalez to stretch that field and give your guys Julio Jones and Roddy White the space that they need outside. And so, and not to mention, Tony Gonzalez is one heck of a weapon in the red zone. You need Tony Gonzalez if you want to win Super Bowl. And so the time for the Falcons is now. Roddy White isn't getting any younger. And so you need to go out and get it done now. So let's look at the Atlanta Falcons and see what they were able to accomplish in free agency. So you look at the players that they've released to this point. The Falcons released Donta Robinson. Here's a guy that was at the cornerback position, and you had a slew of corners to start the 2012 campaign, but you lose Brent Grimes, and Donta Robinson has to step in. You have Asante Samuel. Donta Robinson, solid, sometimes inconsistent. He's a guy that is very tough, very physical, not afraid to tackle. As we all know, he's a guy that gets concussions all the time because he's always throwing his body out there. But you felt like, hey, you're making a lot of money. We want to free up some cap space. You got to go. And I thought that him leaving signified that we want Brent Grimes back in Atlanta. I was wrong. It doesn't look like Brent Grimes is going to be back in Atlanta. We'll talk about that a little bit later. But next guy you allowed to walk away in Atlanta was John Abraham, and an aging defensive end that you could have used his production in the postseason last year. He hurt himself on the last week of the season against Tampa Bay. wasn't really 100% in the postseason. You didn't get anything out of him. And so he's a guy that he really played well for you in Atlanta. But again, making some money. So you're going to allow other guys to step in. You may draft someone. You may go out and address that through free agency. We'll see what the Falcons decide to do. But John Abraham won't be on your team in the 2013 season. You look at another guy released. I thought this one was necessary. Michael Turner. And you guys ran him into the ground. So this is a thing that happened because he's getting up there in age. He's now 30 years old. But you ran him into the ground when you got him from San Diego. You used Michael Turner to really help turn his franchise around. You rode his back. You gave him the ball 300 and some odd times every season. It seemed like for about 3 or 4 years strong. Kind of really ran him into the ground. And now he's a shell of his former self. And so he's gone. And you didn't get a lot of production out of him in the 2012 season. I think you still need a starting running back. We'll talk about that a little bit later. But he needed to go. He wasn't productive anymore. And a guy like Jacquizz Rodgers and someone else in the fold would do just fine instead of having Michael Turner hanging on at the tail end of his career. You look at another guy that you released, and that's Todd McClure. And you didn't release him. He's in the release column because he won't be back. But you didn't release him. He retired. Here's your longtime center. And I'm talking about long time. This guy was here since about the 1999 season. And so he was a stabilizing force. And he didn't miss games. Todd McClure was there. If there was one thing you knew about the Atlanta Falcons, it was that Todd McClure was going to be the center for the Atlanta Falcons. And he had been there for a long time for the Falcons. And so that's going to hurt. Because the one thing you love is continuity. And when you've got a guy in the mix for 12, 13, 14, 15 seasons, it's always refreshing and very comforting to know that that guy's going to be there every single week. Matt Ryan knows this guy's going to be here every single week, but sometimes it's just time to go. And Todd McClure felt like it was time to go. He's retiring. You're going to miss Todd McClure on your football team. So you look at guys that you were able to sign in free agency, just one guy. And really, that's all you need right now. When you're that close to winning the Super Bowl, you only need a piece here, a piece there, in addition to getting some of your own guys back. And the Falcons have some more moves to make. Let's not act like this is the only move that they need to make. But this is a move that could put them over the top. Steven Jackson. And this guy still has something left in the tank. And I thought that for a second there, the Falcons weren't going to pull the trigger on this because I thought Thomas Dimitroff was looking for a guy that was very young at the running back position. And Steven Jackson is only a year younger than Michael Turner. So I thought that maybe there's a chance he won't end up in Atlanta. But the Falcons realized this guy can still play football. He's highly productive. You sign him to a 3-year deal. He's going to come in and instantly upgrade your running back position. Now, all of a sudden, teams can't just key in on your passing attack. They got to stop Steven Jackson. They got to stop Jacquizz Rodgers. All of a sudden now, guys like Roddy White, guys like Julio Jones, guys like Tony Gonzalez are getting one-on-one matchups. And all three of those guys consistently win one-on-one matchups. This is going to be a dangerous offense if they can open up holes for Steven Jackson, if they can pass protect for Matt Ryan. This could be a very potent offense in Atlanta once again. You look at guys that you were able to re-sign in Atlanta. Tony Gonzalez is back. That was huge. He was thinking about retiring. I never thought for 1 second he was going to retire because he went from never having won a playoff game to getting to the NFC Championship game all in one fell swoop. So you go from never winning to almost getting to the pinnacle of your sport. He knew that he's on the cusp of doing something special. Now this is it. He signed a 2-year deal, but he's only playing for one more season. And he's going to give it a run one more time. If they don't win it this year, I don't care if they go to the Super Bowl this season and don't win. He's not coming back next year. This is it. So you better win it. And you got Tony Gonzalez. This is it. This is the year you need to do it if you're the Atlanta Falcons. Look at another guy that you were able to re-sign. Garrett Reynolds. Solid offensive lineman. You need guys back. You can't have enough warm bodies on your offensive line. And so Garrett Reynolds is going to be another guy that can start for you, a guy that can play in a backup capacity. You can never have enough offensive linemen in the National Football League, offensive or defensive linemen. You can never have enough, and Garrett Reynolds is going to add to the Atlanta Falcons' offensive line stability. You look at another guy that you were able to re-sign, Sam Baker. He was much maligned up until last season. I thought he played really well in 2012. I mean, you didn't hear a lot from Sam Baker because he was getting the job done in the 2012 season. And so I really like what he was able to do. Up until then, he was really inconsistent. And I didn't think he would be back in Atlanta when his contract was up. But he played well. And so Sam Baker is a guy you needed to have back. And I'm all for continuity. I'm a big continuity guy. That's how you win in the National Football League. Keeping guys together, keeping core guys together for a long time and allowing them to establish that continuity that you need to be a winning program. Sam Baker comes back and you get that continuity back in Atlanta. This was a huge re-signing for the Atlanta Falcons and one that I thought had to be made. And you went out and got William Moore. And I thought that this was a must. You got Thomas Deku. You got William Moore back in the fold now. One of the better safety tandems in the league, in my estimation. I think that these guys work well together. I think they work in unison, and they have the back half of your defense being really solid. And so William Moore was a must because I love what William Moore does. He forces fumbles. He's very physical. He can play in space as well. Again, not a lot of safeties in the league have that triple package. Can run, can hit, and can catch the football. William Moore can do all of those things, and so that was a must. You got William Moore back, and I thought that was a huge re-signing by the Atlanta Falcons. One of many. I thought the Falcons did a great job of keeping their stuff in-house, and that's key if you're going to win in the National Football League, and that's what the Falcons are setting out to do, continue to win, and this time take it to the next level, possibly getting to the Super Bowl. William Moore will be an Atlanta Falcon for years to come, and that's a great move for the Atlanta Falcons. So now you look at players lost in free agency. And you lost Chris Owens, the cornerback, to Cleveland. A solid loss. It's not going to make or break you one way or the other, but he was solid for you at the cornerback position. He's not going to be back. He's in Cleveland. He moved on. You look at another guy gone, Vance Walker. This one hurts more than Chris Owens to me because I thought that Vance Walker played really well for you on the interior of that line. He's a very versatile guy. He can play defensive end. He can play defensive tackle. He got to the quarterback. He had 3 sacks last year. So he's going to be missed. And so you're going to have to find some production on the interior of that line, whether you address that through the draft or free agency. It's anyone's guess. But you're going to have to find a way to replace what Vance Walker brought to the table for you in the 2012 season because he was very athletic. He got to the quarterback. He was stout in the run game. I like Vance Walker a lot. Thought you should have re-signed him. He's gone. He's now in Oakland. That's going to be a guy that you're going to miss. And speaking of defensive line, think that a guy like John Abraham being gone signals that you're going to look for a veteran presence at defensive end. And I think that the perfect fit for you guys would be Osi Umenyiora. He's a guy that you're talking to right now. I can really see him fitting in nicely in Atlanta, and he's got a lot left in the tank. Don't let his production over the last 2 seasons fool you. This is a guy that gets to the quarterback, and not only does he get to the quarterback, but he forces fumbles when he gets there. He's a guy that even if you push him around the quarterback, he'll stretch one of his Inspector Gadget arms out, smack the ball away, and force a turnover. So this is a guy that you could definitely use in the fold in Atlanta. I expect you to go after him. And that's it for the Atlanta Falcons in the market thus far in free agency.
Carolina Panthers.
Welcome to the market. I'm your host, Lou, and this is the Carolina Panthers in the market. So much for going to the Super Bowl. This was a team in 2012 that 1 year ago this time was talking about going to the Super Bowl, having Super Bowl aspirations. And what are they supposed to say? If you're a team in the National Football League, what are you supposed to say? Oh, we're just going to come out and play football and see where the chips may fall? No. I mean, you have to shoot for the stars. If you don't have the confidence to think that you're going to the Super Bowl, then why should I as a fan? And so I didn't have any problem with them saying that. I just would prefer that you kept that in-house. You should be saying that amongst yourself, not out to the media. And so that really blew up in your face last year, but that's not the reason you lost. You lost as a team last season because I thought that some of your personnel decisions on who you put on the field weren't very good. And I thought that your head coach, Ron Rivera, who surprisingly kept his job, but again, the team rallied and helped him keep his job, winning 4 straight to end the season, didn't make adjustments early on in the season. And everything that worked in the 2011 season didn't work initially in the 2012 season. And he wasn't ready to make adjustments to make this thing work. And so after seeing what wasn't working and what was working and making the necessary adjustments toward the latter half of the season, the Panthers played better football. And they lost some close games that they probably should have won, but you had some bad safety play and that didn't help. And so you're looking to upgrade your roster to help you in these areas. And so let's talk about the Carolina Panthers. I'll be using this big board that you see in front of you, and I have created a comprehensive spreadsheet that you see before you with every team in the National Football League listed on it. And among the topics on this spreadsheet are players released, free agent signees, re-signees. These are the players that you re-sign to your roster. And last but not least, players lost in free agency. So let's talk about the Carolina Panthers and how they were able to really help their roster. I think they did a good job of upgrading their roster. They were quiet at the beginning. They started to make some moves toward the latter half of free agency to this point. And so they're not done yet. Free agency isn't finished. They still have some more moves to make, and they still have some draft picks to go out and get in the draft. And so they didn't have a lot of money coming into this offseason. In fact, they were over the cap, were the Panthers. They made some moves, got rid of some guys, freed up some cap space, and then they were able to go out and make some moves. So let's talk about the Carolina Panthers and what they've done in this offseason to this point. You look at the players released. Chris Gamble, and you released him, and then he ultimately decided to retire. So whether you released him or not, I think he wasn't going to play football anymore. That injury that he had last year that saw him sit out for the majority of the season probably allowed him to see that, you know what, I don't spend as much time with my family as I would like to. I've got more than enough money saved up, and I don't need this anymore. I don't want to move. The Panthers release me. Maybe if the Panthers don't release him and he's still living in Carolina and everything's fine, maybe he's still playing football. But to have to pack up my family and move to a different city, to a different state, I'm at this point of my career and this point of my life, I'm not trying to do that. So Chris Gamble decided, I'm done. So he's not going to be a Carolina Panther anymore. You look at another guy, Dewan Edwards. You released him, and then I thought that was a mistake because this is a guy that played really well for you in the 2012 season. Then you went back and said, hey, we want you back. So maybe there was an understanding there that, hey, we need your cap space right now, but we're going to be back. Don't you go anywhere. We'll be right back. And so Dewan Edwards is back. We'll talk about that a little bit later, though. But you released him before you re-signed him. Look at another guy that the Carolina Panthers released, James Anderson. Solid linebacker. Again, not going to knock your doors off, not going to knock your socks off. Just solid. And you need the cap space. This guy's getting up there in age. You let James Anderson walk away. So you look at another guy that you let go of, Ron Edwards. I told Ron Edwards that, hey, look, man, appreciate everything you've done, but we need that money. And we're not under the cap yet. We need to get under the cap. And you're one of the guys stopping us from getting under the cap. You're expendable. Here's your pink slip. Have a good one. So Ron Edwards no longer a member of the Carolina Panthers as well. You look at all the players that the Carolina Panthers were able to go out and get in free agency. And your secondary was one of your biggest issues in the 2012 season. Your cornerbacks, your safeties, they didn't play well. And so you needed to make some changes in the secondary. So you go out and get a guy like DJ Moore. You go and get him from the Chicago Bears. Solid pickup. Again, I don't think this is a guy that's going to be able to start for you. But in a slot, in the dime, in the nickel, in a pinch he can start. Here's a solid guy that you can add to your team that can come in and help you. You look at Drayton Florence. Veteran presence. Again, not another guy that you want to start. And you have young corners in Carolina. And so I don't expect you to have to start a guy like Drayton Florence. But he's solid, veteran presence. He's going to come in and be able to tutor some of these younger corners, and we'll see what impact Drayton Florence has on your football team. You look at another guy that you were able to sign, Ted Ginn Jr. Very interesting signing. This is a guy that in the return game is going to help you, of course. However, he wants more of a role on offense. Are you going to give him that opportunity? I don't see why not. You lose a guy like Louis Murphy in the offseason. You already don't have a lot of wide receiving options to begin with. And so why wouldn't Ted Ginn Jr. get a couple of opportunities to make some things happen in the passing game? So I see Ted Ginn Jr. being a guy that you try to use out wide at receiver as well as in the return game. We'll see. But This is a nice signing for the Carolina Panthers. Adds more speed to your team. Another guy that you were able to go out and sign in free agency, Mike Mitchell. And again, I just talked about how bad you were at the safety position. Haruki Nakamura, terrible at safety for you last year. That was a failed experiment. Mike Mitchell is going to come in from the Oakland Raiders, and he's going to upgrade your position. Now, how big of an upgrade is it? I don't know, because I don't think Mike Mitchell is all that impressive at the safety position. But as bad as you were at the safety position last year, anything's an upgrade. And so maybe you get the potential out of Mike Mitchell that saw him become a second-round draft pick when he was drafted by the Oakland Raiders. Maybe you get that Mike Mitchell instead of the Mike Mitchell that was just going through the motions in Oakland over the last 3 or 4 seasons. So we'll see Mike Mitchell an upgrade at the safety position, nonetheless, for the Carolina Panthers. You look at what the Panthers were able to do in the department of re-signing their own guys. I talked about Dwan Edwards. You let him go, you handed him a pink slip, and then you said, hey, give us back that pink slip. We need you back in Carolina. I thought he played really well for you, and he's going to be back in Carolina. A nice move by the Panthers getting Dwan Edwards back. Look at another guy you were able to re-sign, Captain Munnerlyn. I thought this was a no-brainer. Okay, you don't have a lot of good corners in Carolina. You have a lot of young corners, Josh Norman and the like, out there. And so guys like Captain Munnerlyn, who played really well for you in the 2012 season, you need to have back. And he was one of the better players you had in your secondary. No need in letting him walk away. Captain Munnerlyn is back. I thought that was a great signing. He's going to be back for the Carolina Panthers. You look at another guy you were able to re-sign, Derek Anderson. You need backup quarterbacks in this league. And Derek Anderson is not a world beater. But what he is a solid backup quarterback. Everyone needs a backup quarterback in this league, believe it or not. And so when you have a solid guy, no need to let him walk away. And there's not a lot of backups that you can count on in this league. Derek Anderson is a solid one. You need to keep him. You did that. A smart move by the Carolina Panthers. So now you look at players lost in free agency for the Carolina Panthers. Not a lot here. Gary Barnidge, one of your backup tight ends, now in Cleveland. A solid pickup for the Cleveland Browns. You're not going to lose any sleep over losing Gary Barnidge. He was a solid blocking tight end that would occasionally catch a pass here and there, but not a big loss for you if you're a Carolina Panthers fan. You look at another guy you lost, Louis Murphy. That one will hurt a little bit. He came over from Oakland in a trade, so you only got him for 1 season. He was solid for you last year, caught a few passes, did a few things, but again, you need receiver help. And I don't know if a guy like Louis Murphy was going to be the answer anyway. So you allow him to walk away, you get a guy like Ted Ginn Jr., and I expect the Carolina Panthers to address the wide receiver position in the draft. Wouldn't be surprised if your first pick and your third or your fourth pick are both receivers in the draft because you need help at the wide receiver position. And so that's going to do it for the Carolina Panthers so far in the market. Next up, we'll be talking about the New Orleans Saints in this division.
New Orleans Saints.
So you're in the market. I'm here to talk about the New Orleans Saints and what a difference a year makes. This time last year, your whole franchise was in flux. I mean, they were flummoxed and they didn't know what to do. They didn't know how to stop the bleeding. They were taking a serious PR hit at this point. Your season was upside down. You didn't know the sanctions that were going to be coming your way. You didn't know that you were going to lose draft picks yet. You didn't know what was going to be the punishment for your head coach, Sean Payton, for your assistant head coach, Joe Vitt. You didn't know what was going to be the penalty for your GM, Mickey Loomis. And so everything in New Orleans was turned upside down last year this time. And it really took a toll on your 2012 season. Let's face it, you were not the same team without your general, Sean Payton. Forget about Joe Vitt, forget about Mickey Loomis, forget about the other guys that potentially were going to be suspended in Jonathan Vilma and those guys. Forget about that stuff. What was going to hurt you the most was Sean Payton, and everyone knew it, and you weren't able to rebound without Sean Payton being there. And so this year, it's a breath of fresh air in New Orleans. You feel like you got 2 number 1 draft picks by getting your head coach back. I mean, you feel like you're right back to where you were 2 seasons ago. And so for the New Orleans Saints, it's a fresh start. You feel like we can get it done. And if you are a team in this division, you have to feel like the New Orleans Saints are going to be back to the New Orleans Saints of old. That team you saw last year, not indicative of who the New Orleans Saints really are. And I think that they've actually gotten better with the moves that they've made in this offseason. Let's talk about the Saints, though. And first, I want to show you my comprehensive spreadsheet that I put together on my big board that you see in front of you that has every single team in the National Football League on it. And among the topics on this spreadsheet, players released, players acquired in free agency. Also, you have re-signees. These are the players that you re-signed to your football team. And last but not least, players lost in free agency. So let's talk about the New Orleans Saints and what they were able to accomplish here in the 2013 offseason in the market and some of the moves that they were able to make in this offseason to help better their team, because I think that they've made some moves that are really going to help them in the 2013 season. They haven't made a lot of moves, but the ones that they have made, I think, are going to be very impactful. So let's look at the Saints. You look at guys that they released. Will Herring, linebacker. We'll talk about him a little bit later. I won't talk about him a lot right now. We'll come back to him a little bit later. Johnny Patrick. Here's a cornerback that you thought was going to be a lot better than what he was. Never really materialized. He's now gone. You're looking to upgrade your cornerback position because this has been a position of need for a while now. You haven't been really good at the cornerback position. And so Johnny Patrick now out in New Orleans. You look at another guy that you got rid of. David Thomas. Solid tight end, solid backup. Again, you feel like you can do so much better at the backup tight end position. And we'll talk about that a little bit later. So now we move on to guys who were able to acquire in free agency. And this one was a big one. Keenan Lewis. This was the first guy that you went out and got in free agency. And this was huge because I just talked about how bad the Saints have been at the cornerback position. There's been weeks where you've given up a boatload of points. And a lot of it had to do with the fact that you couldn't stop teams from passing all over you. Keenan Lewis is going to help you. He's a number one corner for you. Now, guys who were playing out of position. Maybe you had a number 2 corner playing at number 1. Maybe you had a number 3 corner playing at number 2. Now guys are allowed to fit into their slots, to fit where they're supposed to be. Keenan goes to 1. Your 2 that was playing at 1 can now go to 2. Your 3 that was now playing at 2 can go back to 3 where he belongs. And everyone starts to fit where they're supposed to be. So I think this is a solid acquisition for the New Orleans Saints. One that had to be made. And one that allows you to let go of a guy like Johnny Patrick from your football team. You look at another one, and this is another huge upgrade because the Saints love throwing the football to their tight ends. Drew Brees does not discriminate. Doesn't matter if you're the 4th receiver or the 2nd or 3rd tight end. If you're open, you're getting the football. And so David Thomas was released because you felt like you could upgrade the backup tight end position. Here you go, Benjamin Watson. Man, is this guy going to flourish in this offense or what? I really love Benjamin Watson and what he brings to the table for any team in the National Football League, not to mention a team like the Saints who are really going to utilize him behind Jimmy Graham. Benjamin Watson and Jimmy Graham are going to rival that of what New England has at the tight end position in terms of production out of the tight end position because Benjamin Watson is that good. Jimmy Graham, we know he's an elite upper echelon tight end in this league, and so now you have one of the better tight end tandems in the league with Benjamin Watson and Jimmy Graham. Huge signing for the New Orleans Saints. The rich get richer on offense as the Saints add a huge piece to their offense. So now we move on to re-signees for the New Orleans Saints. And you look at the Saints and some of these re-signees and you say, not really that big, but in the grand scheme of things, you need to get all of the guys that you can back that make a difference on your roster. And the lay fan might not realize that a guy like Will Herring at the linebacker position means something to your franchise, but as a staff, you do. And so you got to bring guys back. So let's talk about some of these guys that'll be back for the Saints. Let's talk about Will Herring. I told you that I would talk about him a little bit later. This is why. They let him go early on in free agency, only to re-sign Will Herring. Solid special teamer, can play some linebacker in a pinch for you. He's a guy that you need guys like this on your team. He's a guy that you need on your football team. You need special teams guys on your football team. Will Herring is one of those guys. And again, in a pinch, he can start. He can play some linebacker for you on the field as well. You look at another guy that you got back, Courtney Roby. Fast receiver that can add value in the special teams game. You let go of Robert Meacham last year in free agency. And this year, you're probably going to lose Devery Henderson in free agency. And so you need some speed. You need that guy that's going to stretch the field. Devery Henderson has been that guy for a while. Robert Meacham was that guy for a while. Now Courtney Roby is going to be looked at to assume that role, along with another young guy that I thought really started to play some good football for you last year, in Joe Morgan. And so I think that re-signing Courtney Roby gives you that flexibility out wide at receiver. Add him to the mix with Joe Morgan, with guys like Marcus Colston, Lance Moore, and you'll be fine at the receiver position. So Courtney Roby will be back with the New Orleans Saints. Look at another guy that you re-signed, Ramon Humber. Solid linebacker. Again, nothing earth-shattering, just a solid linebacker. Helps you in a special teams game, can play on the field at the linebacker position. Another signing by the New Orleans Saints. You look at another guy that you have back, Justin Drescher. And you say, Justin Drescher, who is that? The long snapper. You need your long snapper, guys. Don't forget about the long snapper. Ask the Oakland Raiders. If you don't have your long snapper or he gets hurt and you don't have a guy back there that you can trust, you can lose a football game because of it. And so Justin Drescher is going to be back for the New Orleans Saints as the long snapper. So now you look at the guys that the Saints lost in free agency. You lose Turk McBride to the Chicago Bears, defensive tackle, defensive end, a guy that's versatile on that defensive line. He's not going to be back. He's now in Chicago. Again, the Saints need to upgrade their defensive line anyhow. So look for them to address this through the draft and possibly through free agency in the latter stages of free agency as well. You look at another guy gone, Jonathan Casillas. That might hurt a little bit. He started for you at the linebacker position. And again, this is what teams in the division love to do. They see a guy from afar. He plays well. They take notes. He becomes a free agent. They snatch him away from you. He's going to Tampa Bay, a team in the division. And so they weaken your team, strengthen theirs at the same time. Double whammy. Jonathan Casillas now gone and will be a member of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So those are some of your losses. And let's not forget the biggest one of all, Jermon Bushrod, now gone. He's a Chicago Bear. That's going to hurt. That was your left tackle. You're going to have to replace him. It seems like teams every season are plucking off of this New Orleans Saints offensive line that just continues to churn out really good players. You lose Carl Nicks a season ago to Tampa Bay. This year you lose Jermon Bushrod. You got to start replenishing this offensive line. You did that a season ago by getting Ben Grubbs to fill in for that vacancy left by Carl Nicks. Now you're going to need a left tackle. Let's see how you address that. Most likely it's going to be done through the draft, as there are a plethora of left tackles in the draft this season. And so that's it for the New Orleans Saints. This is a team that I felt like they really upgraded their roster in this offseason. That Jermon Bushrod loss is going to hurt. Jonathan Casillas, going to hurt. But you can overcome those things if you draft well and you continue to be active in free agency. You can really minimize the impact that those losses have on your football team. But if you're the Saints right now, you just feel good that Sean Payton is going to be back. And that in itself is a win for you in the offseason. And so that's going to do it for the New Orleans Saints in the market. Now we're going to finish up the NFC South with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
So now we finish up the market in the NFC South with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And this is a team that really overachieved in my estimation in the 2012 season. A lot of people didn't see them coming off of the pace like they did. Greg Schiano got these guys highly motivated. And in the middle of the season, they were playing some of the best football in the league. And they fell back off at the end of the season. And so they finished up with a huge win in Atlanta on the last week of the season. And that gave them some motivation toward the offseason. And I like some of the moves that they've been able to make. They're really looking to upgrade their team. They're swirling around in Revis rumors. And so the Tampa Bay Buccaneers aren't messing around. They're looking to upgrade their roster. They're looking to become a player in the NFC South. And so they continue to make moves like they did this offseason. They will be players in the NFC South. But let's talk about the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I'm going to be using my comprehensive spreadsheet when talking about the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And so let's look at the Buccaneers and the players that they released. Quincy Black, that's it. You released Quincy Black, a guy that could play some linebacker for you. Solid, nothing earth-shattering again here. You're not going to really be lamenting his loss, but he was a solid linebacker for you. And so you're going to have to replace Quincy Black. You look at the guys that you were able to sign in free agency. Kevin Ogletree, solid signing. I think this is a guy that can come in and help you in the slot, and I think you need help in the slot. You guys like Tyquan Underwood. He played for your head coach, Greg Schiano, at Rutgers, and so he's getting an opportunity. I like the speed that Tyquan Underwood brings to the slot, but I don't know if the production is going to match that speed or not. Kevin Ogletree, I think if he can harness what he did against the Giants in the opening game of the season last year for the Cowboys, for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in the 2013 season, I think he's going to be your guy in the slot. So I like this guy thrown into the mix of what you have because you got 2 starting receivers already. And so Ogletree will fit in somewhere at that 3rd or 4th slot at receiver for you. Solid pickup. You look at another guy that you were able to go out and get, Jonathan Casillas. Here's a good linebacker that you got from the Saints. Solid pickup. And again, teams love doing this. You take from a team in a division. You see this guy from afar, and you say, man, this guy's awfully impressive. He comes up as a free agent, and you don't hesitate to go and snatch him away from a divisional rival. So now you strengthen your team, weaken the Saints, double whammy for the Saints, and a good pickup for you. He's an athletic guy that can run around in space, make some plays. He's definitely going to upgrade your linebacker position, is Jonathan Casillas. You look at another guy that you got in free agency, and Tom Crabtree. Solid pickup. I think this is an upgrade over Dallas Clark. Now, Dallas Clark was extremely solid. And he's a guy that if you throw him the football, guess what? Dallas Clark is going to catch it. He's a savvy veteran that knows how to get open, was Dallas Clark. So those are some huge shoes to fill. But Tom Crabtree was an athletic guy from the Green Bay Packers. He's full of tattoos, but he can catch the football. And so Tom Crabtree is going to come on to your football team, and he's going to run around. And if you get him the football in space, he can outrun some guys. He can run, he can catch it. And so I think he's going to be a great addition to your team. Just need to see how you're going to utilize Tom Crabtree. But I think it's a great move by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Another signing for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and this one was huge. This is your big free agent catch thus far, Deshaun Golston. Huge pickup for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And I really think that he's going to come in. He's going to change the game in the secondary. This guy's a playmaker. He's a playmaker, and you put him next to Mark Barron, you've got a young, aggressive safety tandem for the next 5 to 7 seasons. Might be one of the best in the league, depending on how these guys play together. But Deshaun Golston is going to come in. He's going to rectify your safety position. You had a musical chair assortment next to him in terms of Mark Barron for a while now. Ronnie Barber, guys like Ahmad Black, and just a slew of guys out there running around at the safety position. No longer will that be the case. Deshaun Golston is going to hold it down at the safety position. This is a huge move, and I think this is the guy that's going to come in and give this defense instant credibility because he can make plays at the safety position. Not only can he hit, but he can play in coverage and space and make plays on the football. And that's a rare combination in this league in this day and age. Guys normally have a niche. They can either play out in space and make plays on the football or they can hit. Rarely can guys do both. Deshaun Golston can do both. He's a game changer. He's now a Tampa Bay Buccaneer. You look at guys that you were able to re-sign on your football team. Jacob Kutrera. This is a linebacker that you got back, and I think is a nice signing. Guy that you can throw back into the mix. He probably won't start for you, but he's going to be a rotational depth guy. You always need bodies at the linebacker position. Jacob Kutrera is going to do that for you. You look at another guy that you were able to re-sign on your football team. Andrew Economos. And here's a guy that's a tackle for you. Solid, backup capacity in a pinch, can start. He'll be back on your roster. Another solid signing by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So now you look at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and players that they lost in free agency. And you lost quite a bit of players. It hurts sometimes, especially when these guys are impact players like Michael Bennett, who is now in Seattle. And this one, to me, makes no sense because he should have been back in Tampa Bay. He signs a 1-year, $5 million deal to be in Seattle. That makes no sense to me because what that says is that you could have had him back. It's not like he went to Seattle, signed a 5-year, $39 million deal where you could say, man, we weren't trying to pay that much money for Michael Bennett's services. A 1-year, $5 million deal says that, A, you didn't want him back, or B, you didn't try hard enough to get him back. And from all indications, listening to Michael Bennett, it was the latter that made him select Seattle as his new home because he said he didn't feel wanted in Tampa Bay. And I thought that was a mistake because this was your best sack getter in the 2012 season, most consistent guy to get pressure on the quarterback, and you just let him walk away as if you don't need him at all. That's a mistake. Michael Bennett now in Seattle. You look at another guy that you lost, And you just let guys walk away on your defensive line. I don't understand what you were doing here. Roy Miller thought he was solid for you in the interior of your defensive line. He didn't get a lot of pressure on the quarterback, but he collapsed the pocket. He was a guy that was stout at the point of attack in the run game. He needed to be back in Tampa Bay. It's really simple. And you just let him and Michael Bennett walk away as if you don't need them. And that, to me, does not make a lot of sense. But again, maybe you're going in a different direction. Maybe you have an idea of what you want to do, and these guys weren't a part of what you were trying to do. Who knows? You look at another guy that you lost in free agency, Jeremy Trueblood. Tampa Bay Buccaneers fans will not miss this guy one bit. And so Jeremy Trueblood has moved on. He's now in Washington, and you could care less. You actually are probably standing up and applauding this move right now as we speak. Tampa Bay Buccaneers fans were done with Jeremy Trueblood a long time ago, and so now he's moved on to Washington, and you won't lose one bit of sleep over that decision. So now you look at another guy that you lost in free agency, E.J. Biggers, and the Redskins decided that we're going to pick from that Tampa Bay Buccaneers tree if we can. Again, their general manager is your ex-general manager in Bruce Allen, and so he's familiar with some of the guys that he drafted in Tampa Bay when he was there, and so he went and got a few guys that he drafted that he thinks can help the Redskins. E.J. Biggers, who played really good at the cornerback position for you in the 2012 season, a guy that I thought you should have had back again. You don't allow guys to play their best football of their career in their contract season and then let them walk away. If you groom a guy and you watch him mature and get better over a 4-year period, and in the final year of his deal plays his best football, you don't just let him walk away. That's like grooming a guy, getting him better after you got him and he wasn't that good, and then watching him flourish somewhere else. You did all the dirty work for someone else to watch them profit and watch them really be able to eat from the fruit of your labor. And so I thought that's what happened here with E.J. Biggers, a guy that wasn't that good in the 2010 or 2011 season, played really good in 2012, and you just let him walk away. But I think the Tampa Bay Buccaneers have something in mind. You went out, you made some moves, you went out and got a guy like Deshaun Golson, huge signing for you. And so you're going to put him next to Mark Barron. That could be one of the best safety tandems in the league for the next decade. Who knows? These guys are relatively young, very physical, and they can make some plays. So that's a huge signing for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And so we're going to see what the Buccaneers do. They must have a plan. I told you their name has been tossed around in those Revis rumors. And so they seem to be a front runner for the services of Darrelle Revis. They're going to have to part with their first-round pick, but they seem prepared to do so. And so we'll see what the Buccaneers do to address some of these guys that they allowed to walk away. But I like some of the moves you made, but I didn't like some of the guys you allowed to walk away. And so that's going to do it for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and for the NFC South as a whole. If you look at this division and you look at the teams that made some moves to really help themselves, you have to say that the Atlanta Falcons have done the most work to help themselves out of every team in this division. You get Steven Jackson, you get a guy like William Moore back in the fold. You feel like you've done a lot. You kept some guys in the house. You got Steven Jackson. You're probably going to get O.C. Umenyiora as well. I think that the Atlanta Falcons have done the most thus far. And you got Tony Gonzalez back. Let's not forget about that. You get Sam Baker back. I just thought that the Atlanta Falcons kept some stuff and got Steven Jackson. And that right there, to me, is a huge move for the Falcons, a team that was one or two plays away from making it to the Super Bowl a season ago. And so that's going to do it for the NFC South so far in free agency in the market.
The market is